vertical blank. So now essentially what I've done, it's worth noting that the Fujinet is currently the only Atari peripheral that I have connected up to this machine right now. And not only is it the only peripheral that's connected up to this machine right now, it's also being powered by the Atari at this very moment. So there's literally nothing else than just this Fujinet.
Where's it pulling its power from?
I mean, it's pulling the power from the plus 5 volts pin on the SIO port.
On the SIO, okay, it's using the SIO port. Okay, got it.
Now you can choose to either do that or you can power it externally through USB. Your choice.
Got it.
So one of the things that Fujinet actually provides here is a way for you to configure what you see down here, which are drive slots. There are 8 of them, just like you would have 8 possible drives on an S Drive Max system or on a real system. I'm going to take and eject what I currently have in here. We'll take and bring this back up later. And we will go pull something from a remote host here. We're going to take and mount a disk from a remote host, in this case, a copy of Plato Term from this host over here. And it's sitting inside of my comms folder. And we will go ahead, select it. Where do we want to mount it? We want to mount it in drive 1. Go ahead, return, read only, sure. Now it's mounted, and I can go ahead and press Option. It is now booting this over the network. So now you literally see this is a copy of Plato Term that has been booted off of the internet onto this machine from the cloud, and it went and connected to my IrataOnline instance automatically.
Got it.
We'll go ahead and just use the guest account right here. But you can tell right here, just from the get-go, that this is way beyond VT100 emulation.
Oh,
here.
yes. And there's graphics already.
Mm-hmm. Right off the get-go. So we can see right here, I tried to present a nice, easy-to-use menu system. This menu system is actually written using the development environment that is available to users, all users of the system, so that new software can be written for the system, on the system.
Very cool.
So you can see here we have a number of different, we have basically some logos on the lower right-hand corner of the screen. They basically, initially it was going to be so that we could have the logo that matched your group, wherever you logged into. But when I finished drawing all of these, I was so proud of them, I decided to take and want to show them all off. And actually, and since the Atari can only do black and white monochrome for high resolution, that's what you see here. But in reality, there actually is color. And the interesting thing about color is that the way that control data implemented color was specified in the early 80s as a 24-bit RGB color space.
Oh, wow.
So either they were psychic or unbelievably lucky. So of course, I mean, we've got, for example, a complete catalog of lessons that we can take and go into, and we can take and search and look for certain things, such as the aforementioned nuclear training that I talked about earlier.
There's nuclear waste management too.
Nuclear waste management, reactor operators. Let's drill down into number 6 there. And basic academic training for nuclear operators.
This is fantastic.
So, and the one thing here, you'll see all sorts of mentions of custom keys, things like lab, shift next, those sorts of things. The Plato Term documentation actually shows what these actually map to. Wow. And for the most part, these are mnemonics. So lab is Control L, etc. Now, because of limitations on the Atari keyboard, I had to remap some of the shift control combinations to other keys literally because of the way the Atari keyboard matrix works.
Right.
But with that said, if we go ahead, for example, and do a shift lab for a demo, we go into the lesson. And what it's actually doing here right now is it's actually loading in a character set so that it can display certain things faster. And you'll notice, let's see, like right here, what this terminal is actually doing is it's scaling down what is originally a 512 by 512 display and shrinking it down to fit onto the target display, in this case, 320 by 192. I will say that we did get a lot of inspiration from the Atari Plato cartridge that was written. They had a very novel image processing routine that we reverse engineered and improved. So yeah, I want to actually at some point do a video just discussing how that whole process works. Basically, imagine taking a character set that's originally 8 by 16 and shrinking it down to 5 by 6.
Got it. Yeah.
So yeah, there's some interesting acrobatics involved. So we go through, and you have these different lessons, and at any time, if you want to take and quit, you can hit shift stop and be able to take and bounce back out. You can go through the menu. So you have all this educational content. You also have games aplenty. So some of the games that you see, for example, are things like some basic things that you see, like checkers, for example. Again, it's loading in a character set for the checkers pieces and the board and everything. And because it's actually able to do that, it renders it very quickly. You have this complete interactivity. Now, it's worth noting as well that Plato terminals were touchscreen terminals. I did not mention that. So you have touchscreen interactivity. So you have, I'm not where I can actually use the touch bits and pieces, but you can take and touch to move the individual individual checkers pieces, for example. That works. Some of the other bits and pieces of games, let's see. Let's take it up a notch, shall we? I'm going to log out real quick and log in as my account, as my sign-on, so we can get into this next one, because it needs a real user account for this one to work. I had the forethought ahead of time to obscure the number of .x's that are shown for a given password. It's different each lot of forethought. So we're now logged in as me here, and if we go to games, and we go to Avatar. Avatar is what we would now call today a multiplayer MMORPG.
Yeah.
I want you to note the date of this program as it comes across here. But first, we're going to draw the dragon.
Oh, wow.
So 1979, 1980, 1981, 82, 83, 84.
84.
So now we're actually going to go into the world, and this is a multiplayer game, so you can have multiple people playing inside this dungeon interacting with each other here. It's worth noting that the first one of these games of this type showed up on Plato in 1974.
Wow.
So yeah, this wasn't the first one, but it is the most popular one. So right now we're looking at an inventory display. We're in the city here, and I'm actually going to take the stairs down, and we're going to go down into the catacombs. And you can see that we're now interacting and moving around
This
in the catacombs
space over here.
Yep, you got it. And the interesting thing was, this was all designed to work well over a 1200 baud connection. So that's actually another first too. All of the Plato terminals had 1200 baud modems in them.
This is at a time when 150 and 300 were the stand. Where 300 was like you were lucky to get 300.
Yes, exactly. So everything that we're seeing here, that's part of the reason why you have the things like character sets and whatnot. It allows these things to run really well, even at 1200 bits per second. So, okay, so that's another game here. But let's take it a step further. We're going to go into a little game called Airfight. And I'm going to preface this by stating that the guy who designed Airfight was a doctorate student at UIUC at the time. There was another named Brand Fortner. There was another student at UI of UC at the same time that Brand Fortner was designing Airfight. Bruce Artwick, the guy behind Sublogic. So what you're about to see is literally what he saw and what inspired him to write Flight Simulator in the first place. Now look at the date on that splash screen right here. So we're going to pick a YF16 here. We got some stats because these stats actually mean something in the game. So we give ourselves a call sign. And we have 11,000 pounds available for whatever. I'm going to use 8,000 pounds of it for fuel. And we're going to say, okay, that leaves us with the ability to have 10 missiles. So we'll go ahead and put those on there because this is a dogfighting simulation. We're going to take and turn off the radar display, the full radar display, so that I can do this at a faster speed here. But I am now going to pull the stick back a little bit here, and I am going to set my flaps 25 degrees. I'm going to set the throttle, and we're just going to go. And what we're doing here and what you're seeing is literally a first-person perspective being drawn here.
Oh, that's awesome.
Now this too, believe it or not, is a multiplayer game. So you can have the whole point of this is literally for multiplayer dogfights. And of course you can send, you see that little icon in the upper left corner there, that's a message box. So you have this here, you have things like a map view, so you can see where you are in relation to the other players in the game,
oh, wow.
where the other landing strip is, etc. For there's a landing strip for each of the two teams, as well as basically heading your compass over there in the lower right-hand corner for orientation. So that's Airfight. So a first-person flight simulator written in 1976.
76, exactly. And
he started it 2 years before. It's worth noting that this is possible precisely because of the computer this thing was running on. This is running on a supercomputer.
Right.
A little bit about this particular machine. This is a 17865. It has approximately 1 megaword of memory. Now the word size is 60 bits wide.
60?
So basically 60, 60.
60, right, 60, okay, got it.
Mm-hmm. So multiply everything by 8. So you're looking, if you were to convert that to bytes today, that would be approximately 8 megabytes of memory on this machine. A machine dated 1978, 1980, somewhere in there. And you know, you've got 60-bit words, you've got massive floating point registers. This was meant for big boy computing. So you can do things like write a first-person flight simulator and not even have to write it in assembler. It can be written in a high-level language, and it'll actually perform quite well. Basically, languages like authorware and whatnot owe their very existence and their lineage directly to Tudor. Really, there's so much to it. Here I have a game here. Did I think we may have frozen up here. This is a Star Trek simulator called Empire.
Empire, right? I see the.
So another classic Plato game here. Now I seem to have my 1200 needs some more work done to it. It freezes occasionally. So now what I have here, I've logged in as an author account, and anybody who has access on IrataOnline can ask for an author account to get access to what is essentially the second part of the system. which allows you, which is a complete development environment. So you can write new pieces of software and in a language that looks an awful lot like BASIC. So as an example here, we'll actually take and load up something that I will finish eventually. And we will take a look at this. And you can see that I was last in here, yeah, a few months ago. And we're now looking at what is essentially the editing environment. And we get to see each lesson is divided into a number of parts. Each of those parts is divided up into a number of blocks. And each of those blocks can contain some sort of functional elements. So if we I'm going to take and go to the second part here, and I'm going to pull up part block A here, which is subs draw. This you're looking at right now is essentially a piece of tutor code that draws the board for the Othello game. And you'll notice as we take and go down through this, we're easily mixing bits and pieces of graphics and text, just seamlessly together here. And in fact, the bits and pieces like the Othello pieces were drawn in the character set editor, and they're specified as the character set to load when the game starts. So whenever I go into the editor, it knows to take and load that character set too, so I can use it directly.
And how are those dropped in? Do they have control keys to drop in the different characters in the character set?
Yeah, you have what's called a font key, and if you press font, it will take and switch to the other font, the font that's loaded, your user font.
Got it.
You can have one user font loaded in addition to the standard font. So that's 256 characters that you can mess with. To show that part of it in a nutshell here. That was code, and you saw the code looks an awful lot like BASIC, but if we go into, say, the character set editor, for example, we can edit the character set. We can see which characters are actually used. You can see I'm using those pieces for drawing the Othello pieces and whatnot, and we can edit them. So if we, give me a second. I can move around with the arrow keys and make my changes, turn dots on and off, that sort of thing. So it's all full screen and it's interactive. But I can actually take it a step further. Since these characters, these Othello pieces, are made up of multiple pieces, and the Plato people understood that there would be a need to alter multiple characters at the same time, they offered a multi-feature. If we go back and do multiple character add, inspect, modify, and compose the characters that we want to edit. And we'll go ahead and press data to bring everything up. So now we have everything basically here where we can take and modify the character set here. Now, keep in mind too, this is being done on the Atari, and the Atari doesn't know, implements the Plato protocol. So it has access to all these features. Each platform will take and present the best look of what it can show for each target here. Now, let's go ahead and I will shift back out of here and take this even a step further. In addition to character sets, you actually have, let's go ahead and shift stop, and I'll just go into the bits and pieces of the Othello game that I've been working on. You have, of course, a big board where you can have participants come up and say, okay, I want to play you, you want to play me, and it's just a way to say, play this person, I'm available, that sort of thing. And you've got a message box down below so you can send messages to each other saying, okay, hey, I'm ready to play, that sort of thing. If we go ahead and you can see the Othello board right there ready to go. So I'm still kind of putting that all together.
Still, that's really cool.
Mm-hmm. Let's take it a step further. They understood that not only would they need the ability to display small characters, bitmapped character sets, but they needed a way to be able to do large characters as well. So they came up with something that they called line sets, and in the process accidentally invented proportional fonts. Go into this inspect here for this particular line set. Let's look at the font. This is a line set called Errata font. And we can go to the large grid here because all these are large characters, and I will take and pick up. So we have a vector font editor here. So we can take and create each of our individual characters. And once we're done, we can test each as we finish them. Go ahead and try them out. Default size. Oh, sorry, size 1. Yeah, right there.
Yeah. So you're able to bend lines in that. I mean, you're able to do. Well, you aren't really bending lines. You're able to make lines. I guess you would have to bend them. Anyway, you're able to bend lines inside that editor.
There's not. You're able to put them close together. There are no splines. That would be the next evolution of font development here. But you're able to take and make fonts entirely out of lines. So some of those lines are very close together. That would be the next bit of efficiency right there. So in addition to all of this, I wish I would have known I was going to do a complete IrataOnline demonstration because I would have set up a second terminal. One of the things that's built into the system here is the ability to have a person share their screen with another person or with up to 300 or so participants.
So that would be like a teacher maybe in a classroom or something like that.
Yes. So not only was there an ability to do one-on-one screen sharing. So if you're collaborating with someone writing a piece of software, or if you're a student having a problem, you can communicate with a teacher and they can see what you're doing. But you also have the ability to do large-scale conferencing. And one of the videos that I actually put together was a demonstration of, I think I topped off at 14 logins at the same time, emulated on my machine, all at the same time, going into a screen share, sharing the same screen and bouncing it out across 14 different platforms at the same time. And the system just takes and translates back and forth. It's transparent screen sharing. And keep in mind, in the 70s.
I mean, these guys are way ahead of their time. Like why they couldn't sell this thing, I don't know. Maybe someone did an IBM on them or on Microsoft and then bought them out and then got rid of their product.
It's well, the story of what happened with Plato is told very well in a book called The Friendly Orange Glow. And it's written by a guy named Brian Deere. He spent roughly a decade writing this book, going into the history of the Plato system and following up with its cultural impacts on the computing industry, and ultimately what happened to Plato. And it actually goes through and explains what happened. And the short of it is, it's complicated. There were a lot of mistakes made over a lot of different years with multiple entities. And Plato ultimately had what I would describe as a soft landing. The last commercial Plato system was Novanet, and it was shut down at the end of 2015.
Oh, wow.
So, and believe it or not, that Novanet system was still running the same software on the back. They actually forward ported it first to a custom wire-wrapped 60-bit machine and literally implemented an ECL logic, which they called Zephyr. And then they moved that over to a set of DEC Alpha systems. emulating the system as they went.
I see that the friendly orange glow is available everywhere.
Yes.
It looks like they're all used. Let's see, paperbacks. Let's see. I'm on Amazon right now. You can actually, no, you can buy one. There's 3 left in stock right now on Amazon. I'm not in my own account right now. But if I was, no, it's not my own account. I'm going to buy one. It's $15.11 right now. So
I would highly recommend buying this book. It is an illuminating read on multiple levels. So yeah, I mean, so essentially what I had been doing for IrataOnline was trying to take and make a place so that all of these different 8 and 16-bit systems could ostensibly come together and have a community of our own that would span all of these different platforms and allow us to come together and share and collaborate and cross-pollinate things. Because one of the biggest criticisms that I've had of the retro computing communities at large is that they are highly tribal and highly isolated, and they don't really share things beyond their walls. And this was an attempt to try and break that down.
Into the vertical blank. An 8-bit Rocket Studios production.